This video is dedicated to the development and distribution of knowledge. The ideas discussed in this video are not my own. The article I'll be reading was written by Grant Jenneru. You can find his website, blog posts, and free ebooks in the description below. Grant's first book is a precursor to this article. If you haven't read it, this article may not make much sense at all. It's important to note that the knowledge base surrounding vitamin A is expanding and changing rapidly at the moment. Grant's recommendations and ideas may have changed from the time this article was written and the time at which you're reading it. All references in the article will be linked in the description, and all charts, graphs, etc. will be shown on screen. This is really important as these charts are critical to understanding the article. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment your opinion on the subject. We really need as much input as possible from all angles and perspectives. I should have Grant's full ebooks recorded and uploaded in the coming weeks. I'm also conducting and documenting a zero vitamin A mouse experiment to help determine whether vitamin A was miscategorized as a vitamin. Final point, none of this is to be considered medical advice in any way, shape or form. The ideas discussed herein do not necessarily reflect my own personal views and beliefs, and my opinions are subject to change at any time. Without further ado, enjoy. It's been a bit of a year since my last update. I've been holding off on posting a new one because I wanted to get to the 4-year point with my diet. The 4-year anniversary date is August 11th, 2018. But things are starting to move along faster readership wise. Last year I had 5 subscribers, and now I am up to 10. So I'm clearly on a roll, and thus I am posting this a bit early to catch the wave. An inexpensive fluoroscope. Dan from Chicago has shared a great tip. Rather than using a geology fluoroscope to inspect the skin for areas of high concentration of retinoids, he's determined that you can use an automotive leak detection light. He's used this $15 kit. He's also shared some photos of his skin under this light. And then, using the test light on that same area, as you can see the fluorescence. The eye exam. I finally got around to getting a comprehensive eye exam done. The results were all good, no glaucoma, no macular degeneration. The vision tests, both near and far, were a clear pass. The pressure test was fine, no need for reading glasses, and no need for driving glasses. I do still have a trace remnant of a cataract in the left eye, so overall my eye health and vision are excellent, and of course vastly improved compared to 4 years ago. But the kicker was, as I was finishing up with the exam, the eye doc sat back in his chair, looked a little perplexed, and said, "I don't understand how you could have gotten to be this age, 58, and still have such good eye health and vision." That was a completely unprompted remark, and I did not say a word about my peculiar diet. Then I asked, "What about the vascularization?" He replied, "That's normal, don't worry about that." Of course, I don't think it's really normal, rather that it's now just so common in people my age that it appears to be normal. Anyways, the claim that vitamin A is needed to maintain human vision is now officially debunked, at least as far as I'm concerned. My night vision remains very good too. The one vision change I do notice now is that the color yellow is just richer. It's like the difference between seeing a dull looking egg yolk and one that's much deeper brighter yellow. It's not a problem, it's just different than before. Oh, I know there will be the skeptics and the naysayers who will claim that I've just not waited long enough for the great vitamin A deficiency to swoop down and take me out. No worries, I plan on maintaining my zero vitamin A diet at least for another 5 years, and I'll let them know the moment that it catches up to me. Overall health. The other areas of my health remain good too. I still have a good energy level and no concerns whatsoever about my health. My weight has remained the same, and almost regardless of how many calories I take in, my BMI remains steady at 26. But there are a few areas that are still showing improvements. One is that my skin is progressively getting smoother, almost everywhere. It was also quite smooth a year ago too, but strangely it's just getting smoother and nicer as time goes on. Even the skin on my heels is becoming smooth. Likewise, the same goes for my fingernails. They are now very nice and smooth too, and they no longer have the longitudinal ridges in them. My bones and teeth are feeling stronger too. My blood pressure is at the suggested optimal values, usually at 120/80, and my cholesterol levels are like perfect too. These cholesterol numbers are good even for children that are less than 9 years old. These low numbers are not surprisingly because one of the pathways for the breakdown of vitamin A is for it to convert into cholesterol. Additionally, my platelet count is down to 134. The normal range is 150 to 400. I'm guessing that's because I no longer need a bunch of sticky platelets constantly trying to repair damage to my blood vessels. I'm also finding that I need somewhat less sleep and food than I did a few years ago, and I still maintain a good energy level throughout the day. However, regardless of whether I need it or not, I do try to get at least 7 hours of sleep a day. Somewhat related, 5 years back, after waking up in the morning, I seriously needed my coffee. So much so that anyone standing between me and my first coffee was in some danger. Then after the coffee, I needed a shower to fully wake up. I used to joke that I was not even human until after I had my coffee and my morning shower. Now that's no longer the case. All joking aside, I am just much more alert and clear thinking upon first waking. I really don't need coffee anymore at all, and I'm finding it less appealing too. The diet. A few people have asked me how I could eat such a limited diet. I usually explain that it is super easy. First I put the rice in a bowl, and then I add some beans. And then I add the cooked bison, add hot water and a pinch of salt to turn it into a soup. And then I eat it. But seriously, it is super easy and fast. I just take the previously cooked rice, bison and beans out of the fridge, add hot water, and I'm done. That's it. I do the same for lunch. I just put it in a colander and take it with me to work. The only downside is that it's a bit boring. But I'll take boring over having my skin burn off again. There are other things you should also know about this diet. Firstly, I probably get most of my calories from rice, not the bison. I have tons of energy on this diet, and I almost never feel hungry. Of course, it's been well known in Asia for centuries now, but rice is an amazing energy superfood. I can't say enough good about it. The same somewhat categorization applies to the beans. Of course, both rice and beans are very low cost too. But do not for 1 second believe that you can live on rice and beans alone. I believe adequate animal meat is very important too. Even with the beef, bison added, this is still a very inexpensive diet, and that's a bonus. After all, fruits and vegetables are quite expensive too. They also represent a huge amount of industrial waste because of spoilage. Next, this brings up another question people are probably wondering about, and that is, do the beans increase gas and flatulence? Firstly, here's a little bit of trivia for you. Do you know that regular, healthy people pass gas on average 13 to 21 times per day? So if you work in an office with say 50 people per floor, that's one heck of a lot of stinky methane seeping into the air that you are breathing. Naturally, you sure don't want to be over-contributing to that with the added beans in your diet. Well, the surprising good news is that even with the beans, on this diet, the number of times you'll have flatulence in a day will be right around 0. At night and while sleeping, 0 too. And it's probably around 0 times per month too. That's right. Amazingly, nothing. Perfect. Bowel movements are also perfect. My simple diet is just such a civilized one to adopt on that aspect of it alone. Additionally, just the amount of money you'll save on toilet paper will somewhat offset for the amount of money you'll spend on beef. Kidney disease. One of the topics I only touched on a bit in my ebooks was my early diagnosis of kidney disease. I was given this diagnosis in late 2006. My nephrologist told me that I still had a good amount of time left, but I should get my affairs in order. He told me that there is no known definitive cause and no medication, and of course, no cure for chronic kidney disease. The longer-term prognosis was that I'd be finished by 2013. Although my nephrologist was so incredibly accurate in that prediction, it did not turn out to be precisely correct. I just had a checkup done. My kidney function is now back to normal. I no longer have leaking protein, and my creatinine and GFR numbers are perfect too. Go figure. Twisted bones. Way back a long time ago, when I had read Darwin's Origin of the Species, I was quite surprised at just how confused and wrongly modern biology was interpreting his work. Darwin clearly knew that the concept of random mutations could only possibly account for just the tiniest little fraction of the forces driving evolution. What he stated, and he stated it over and over, if anyone bothered carefully reading his book, that it was natural breeding selection that was truly the biggest driving force behind the rate of evolutionary change. Just as importantly, it was that he fully understood, and he also stated it multiple times too, that the mother's life experiences were somehow actually programming the outcome of the offspring. Yet, what's taught in schools today is a grand distortion of what Darwin had discovered. Evolution is not the process of random mutations, but rather it is the process of purposefully built adaptations, both in real time and over generations. Thus, Darwin had discovered epigenetics some 150 years ago. But there is a secondary distortion that I want to highlight regarding Darwin's story, and that is the shape of his own skull. Upon Darwin's return from his famous Beagle voyage, and having suffered from severe and chronic eczema during those years, Darwin's father had noted that the shape of Darwin's skull had changed. Yes, Darwin, who was regularly eating organ meats, had the shape of his skull changed. Now, isn't that fascinating? Over the last few years, I've had quite a few people contact me who had taken Accutane as an acne treatment. One surprising, consistent theme from their stories is the time frame. It's usual to hear that they had taken the drug over 10 years ago and are still suffering from it. The second surprising comment was that several of them reported that the drug had twisted their bones. Then, about 3 years ago, I had exchanged some messages with a woman who's about 40 years old. She had severe rosacea and a condition called TMJ. This condition is that of a twisted jawbone. She had a very noticeable crooked smile and damaged teeth because of it. The rosacea was bad enough, but the twisted jaw was causing her a tremendous amount of chronic pain. She had shopped the nation for surgeons to treat the condition. What they offered sounded horrific, and none of them guaranteed any long-term success either. Of course, the proposed surgeries came with substantial risks and guaranteed facial scarring too. The only thing that stopped her from going ahead with the surgeries was the cost. The needed surgery was quoted at between $50,000 and $100,000 US. When I talked to her, she told me that herself and her husband had added liver as an almost bi-weekly staple food in their diets a few years earlier. She had read in some fashion magazine that liver was the new health food. Her husband had developed severe gout at about the same time she had first developed rosacea. She had read my blog post and was extremely doubtful and very skeptical that the additional vitamin A consumption could have caused her conditions. Nonetheless, to be on the safe side, she stopped eating liver and very reluctantly adopted a low vitamin A diet too, but not totally zero. Now, 3 years later, her jaw has straightened back out. Her rosacea is completely gone too. She's also much happier and calmer now. But I'm disappointed to say that she's not fully convinced that the low vitamin A diet was responsible for the remarkable recovery. She cannot bring herself to believe that a vitamin could have caused it, or that medical science has gotten it wrong. Well, there's only so much I can say, other than that the highest authority in science is that which is demonstrated in nature. Next, for my own twisted bones story. For well over a decade, and maybe more, like about the last 2 decades, I've had 2 bulging vertebrates in my lower back. They're about 2/3 the way down. They never really bothered me too much, even though I could only see them by using a mirror. I really needed 2 opposing mirrors to see them effectively. Thus, it was a no big deal kind of thing, and I only had a single mirror in my bathroom, so I was fine. Then, a few months ago, I was in a washroom with multiple mirrors, and lo and behold, I noticed that those 2 bulging vertebrates are almost not visible anymore. They have straightened out and are now almost completely back in alignment with the rest of my spine. I never, not in 100 years, could have imagined that to happen. So, in addition to all the other horrible things this so-called vitamin can do to us, it's even causing the twisting of our bones. How remarkable is that? Breast cancer. You might be surprised to learn how much more pain and misery and death this so-called vitamin is inflicting on the women of the world. That's the topic of my next ebook. It should be ready in the next few days. Breast cancer. Posted by Grant Jenneru, August the 6th, 2018. While doing the background investigation for my 2 earlier ebooks, I often saw similarities between many of the aspects and characteristics of the chronic diseases and those of cancer. It was especially so for breast cancer. Thus, I've looked at the breast cancer topic a bit more. It has by no means been an exhaustive investigation, however, it has led me to 2 conclusions. 1. Breast cancer is caused by poisoning. 2. The primary causal toxin responsible for that poisoning is vitamin A. I'm presenting this theory in a new ebook. I've tried to keep this ebook short, but I think there is still ample amounts of evidence presented in it to sufficiently back up the above conclusions. As with my other ebooks, this one is free, so please download this ebook and feel free to share it with anyone you want. All I ask for in return is that you comment on it as you see fit. Thanks. Nothing. It's Worth Fighting For, by Grant Jenneru, 26th of August 2018. I've had a number of people asking me to get a vitamin A test to see where my serum levels are now at. Of course, I was very curious about that too. It sounds simple enough, but it's not. Here in Alberta, vitamin A testing is lumped in with vitamin D testing, and our socialised medical system has stopped providing discretionary testing for these vitamins. Too many people were requesting the vitamin D test, and it was costing the province millions of dollars. Thus, it appears that they took the position that since we know that almost everyone is vitamin D deficient anyways, there's no need to continue testing for it. Quote, "Since we can't get enough vitamin D from food to meet our body's needs, Alberta Health Services recommends that all healthy Albertans take a vitamin D supplement." End quote. Here, they've provided the blanket recommendation that nearly everyone should just supplement with vitamin D. Yes, our medical experts think that we all should supplement with a vitamin that can also become toxic. Doesn't that sound familiar? In the context of vitamin A, it's, quote, "practical, reliable, field-based techniques for assessing vitamin A status are increasingly in demand. Not so much to determine whether particular individuals need vitamin A. At 4 cents for 200,000 international units, it will be always easier, cheaper, and safer to assume that they do, but as a way of identifying deficient populations that require community-based intervention." End quote. Yes, it's the same sordid story, just a different potentially toxic vitamin. Anyways, it took a bit of wrangling, but I was finally able to get the tests. The results. Vitamin A, below the normal range, 0.1 nanomoles per litre, with the following advisory warning. Vitamin A levels less than 0.4 nanomoles per litre correlate with severe deficiency. Supplementation is advised. Although it's not the 0.0 nanomoles per litre value I was hoping for, it's still extremely low. The average for men my age is more like 2.2 nanomoles per litre. Therefore, my level is about 20 times lower than normal. Also, compare my serum level to the 1969 case study of the young man in Britain I'd referenced along with the vitamin A and epilepsy. A dietary contratemps study by Sharman I.M. Stern G. After 5.5 years of eating a vitamin A-free diet, he succeeded in getting his serum levels down to about 0.2 nanomoles per litre. In that report, he was said to have had the lowest serum levels of vitamin A ever recorded in Great Britain. Now, with my levels down to 0.1 nanomoles per litre, I just may have beaten his long-standing record. I'll continue with my diet to see if I can achieve the 0.0 nanomoles per litre within the next year. Getting to absolute zero is obviously hard to achieve. It just might be an asymptotic drawdown function. Or maybe the test is not designed to be accurate in this abnormally low range. Vitamin D. My vitamin D levels are at 72 nanomoles per litre. Here in Alberta, the desired normal range is 80 to 200 nanomoles per litre. I'm a bit on the low side, but not overly so. In US units, the 72 nanomoles per litre equates to 29 nanograms per mil. So it's still very close to being in the normal or even in the optimal range depending on whom you ask. A few other people have suggested that my original health issues were due to a vitamin D deficiency. However, that assertion is completely nonsensical for a variety of reasons. 1. I had lots of vitamin D in my diet leading up to my disease conditions. Vitamin D did not prevent me from getting the diseases. 2. I then fully recovered from all my disease conditions by eliminating vitamin A and not by adding vitamin D. 3. There's been a massive amount of vitamin D supplementation going on here in Canada, and in other Western countries too, and there is no corresponding massive improvement in our rates of chronic disease. And forget about seeing massive improvements in disease rates. There's been no improvement. Sure, vitamin D is probably helping people cope with the diseases, but it is not completely curing them either. So, clearly, a vitamin D deficiency is not at the root of the disease. Maybe vitamin D is acting much like many of the pharmaceutical drugs and is just abating or blocking the symptoms. Most importantly, the very concept of a vitamin deficiency is what has gotten us into this giant mess in the first place. I really have no research interest in vitamin D either. All I know is that vitamin D has been used as a rat poison for decades, and that is an absolute fact. Next, Consider that rats are the de facto model used to test the toxicology of drugs and other chemicals. Yet, somehow we are supposed to be credulous and believe that vitamin D magically gets a free pass on it, and supplementing with it is somehow good for us? Sorry, I'm not buying it. I'm going with that real-world evidence and calling it for what it is. No one can argue that it's not a toxic substance at high doses. Obviously, it is far less toxic than vitamin A. Since vitamin D binds to the same cellular receptor as does vitamin A, then it's possible that it just blunts the potential toxicity of vitamin A. It may be that vitamin D only appears to be so beneficial in bone growth and maintenance due to its obstructing the osteoporosis causing effects of vitamin A. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but we should be careful with it. For now, I'll stick with my single-minded focus on investigating vitamin A. Thank you so much for listening. This is a topic that demands attention and respect as it potentially affects every person on the planet, especially as the diet around the world becomes more westernized. In order to get to the bottom of this, we need exposure as well as healthy and robust discussion. You can really make a difference by commenting, subscribing, liking, and or sharing this video. You can check out Grant's other articles, ebooks, and my mouse experiment by clicking on the link to my YouTube channel, Ye It LDT, below. And don't forget to check out Grant's website and forum. Let me know in the comments what you think about Grant's theory, be it positive or negative. Do you have an experience with vitamin A? All the best, thanks again, and take care.